Welcome to another episode of Conversation and Cocktails with your host, me, Lenny B. In this episode, we talked to Chris Wynne of In Effect Hardcore Fanzine. We spoke to Chris about how fanzines went from print to digital, along with hardcore, music, and life. So sit back, enjoy, and roll that fucking footage. All right, Chris, how you doing?
Aren't you going to do your regular intro?
No, the regular intro comes afterwards.
I'm doing good, Lenny. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. This is actually the first time I'm doing it before noon. I've already had a couple of cocktails, and Chris is here early because we both work jobs where we're up early, so why the fuck not?
Why not?
Why not? Chris, why did you decide to do a fanzine in hardcore instead of just try to play an instrument or sing for a band or take photos? I mean, what made you want to start a fanzine?
Well, I did start doing the musical thing. It was a bass in my friend's bedroom that always had no strings, and I would always tell them, if you string that bass up, I'll learn how to play. And that became the band Fit of Anger, with Nick singing and my friend Al Cruz on guitar, and they dragged me in with no drummer into their garage after they got the bass strings put on. And after about an hour or two of doing that and them telling me to go home and practice, I said, this shit's not for me. So basically, I never had any skills with doing that. And then as my journeys, I guess, in the beginnings of getting into the hardcore scene and whatnot, I ran into Freddie Alva, who was doing a New Breed magazine at the time. And I believe it was the first issue. And he had me and Paul from Oxblood as our we were kind of apprentices, and Freddie was like the Mr. Miyagi of the zine. He knew what to do. He had done the zine before. He said, we're going to get some bands. We're going to line up the bands that we want to interview, and then we're going to send them off questions through the mail.
Right.
Not just
sit down.
We're not going to go find these bands. But one of the bands I had was, I believe, was Pressure Release, and I had the New York Hoods was I believe New York Hoods was mine. There were 2 interviews I did in that first issue. And I remember getting Pressure Release's address, I think, off of the demo, and mailing them questions. And they actually mailed it back, and I was like, oh, shit. I couldn't believe that they got it, and they responded. And the first issue came out, and Freddie pushed it and sold it and whatnot. And I kind of wanted to do more of my own thing, and that's when I started the In Effect thing.
What year was this about?
1988, I believe.
So 88 was the first time In Effect.
Yeah, so it was 1988 is my guess. Everything's a big blur now as far as dates. I'm not great with dates. I'm good with names still, decent with names, and I can remember when I see the issues who's in it. But I think it was around 1988. Very
nice. Yeah, I mean, I remember when you did the print of In Effect. And everybody waited like it's going to be in C here, or we'll just go see you and give you whatever.
$1.
Was it $1? Yeah. I don't remember what the price was.
Yeah, I try to keep it real.
And we were just, because it was laid out really user friendly. It wasn't you had for instance the whole 9 yards, which was you had to be slightly on drugs to understand what the fuck was going on with them. I'm not talking shit about Gabe or anything, but his fanzines were definitely there was a lot of fanzines like that though. There was just kind of I'm going to cut and paste and print and then just put words zigzagged everywhere and hey, this picture looks better upside down. Why the fuck, again, you sort of had to be sort of psychotic to read something.
The Gabe's mailing abilities were along those lines. When he would mail me the magazine, it would come with paper clips. I had a Band-Aid that came with it, a new Band-Aid, not a used one. All sorts of oddities would just be thrown into the envelope, and it would just make me crack up. And it was definitely a cool zine. And like you said, It was a little crazy. Yeah,
it was definitely out there. But there was I knew a lot of people who did the hand drawn thing for a while there, and you eventually went from the hand drawn to an actual a photocopy thing to an actual
print. Yeah,
print.
We around issue 9, I think it was, or issue 8 or 9. I switched over. My ex-girlfriend started doing the layout, and we bought a Macintosh, and she worked with it at work, so she knew it inside out.
All right.
So the layout became a lot better after that.
You're a lifelong Queens guy, obviously now living in
Long Island.
Long Island. You grew up in College Point
Yep.
your whole life?
Yeah, I was in College Point till I was about 35.
Really? Lifelong Queens guy. How would you say, like, because College Point, you had bands out from College Point, you had bands out from Whitestone, you know, and like that was like the boonies for like someone like me who grew up in Manhattan, you know. And I'm a Queens guy, but that's like where the trains stop running. You know, that's where it's like you either take the bus or you have some sort of bullshit car. You know, and you had some bands come out of, you know, like you had like EGH come out of there. You had who the fuck were the
Fit of
band?
Anger.
Fit of Anger was another one of those.
Born.
Oh wow, there's a name I have not heard in a long fucking time. You know, and Queens has definitely always had its share of like really like good hardcore bands. I mean, there's the Astoria thing, obviously, you know, where you have your token entries. You know, Jackson Heights more or less for Gorilla Biscuits and Astoria, and you know, Killing Time and shit like. Well, actually, no, Killing Time was more like upstate guys, and then
Anthony was from Jackson Heights.
Yeah, Anthony was from Jackson Heights, but they always seem to like fall into that like Queens thing because of Anthony. You know, what is it about? What's in the water in Queens?
I don't know. We were just, I guess the types of, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, my block, my immediate friends, all the common thing was we all seemed to have like some kind of, I guess parental issues. Like everybody had like divorced parents and things like that. And everybody's parents were like, you know, garbage men and just, I don't know, I guess like more like a blue collar thing. I'm not saying that's a blanket statement across the board, but a lot of my friends had, you know, like issues at home and stuff like that. And I never thought about it. I'm into hardcore because my parents are split up or whatever. I just happened upon it, and then kids, I guess, going to school. It's like, you know, we're all like in a same kind of fishbowl, so to speak, and you know, you kind of gravitated towards the people that were into the, you know, into groups. It was like kind of like, you know, more like of athletic jock type of people, and then they were like, you know, we kind of morphed into like metalhead kind of thing, and then we found hardcore after metal.
Well, what was your first like metal bands that you liked? Like, what was like what you dug on?
The craziest thing that ever happened to me was like listening to like WPLJ 95.5 had like a top 3 or top 5 at 9 o'clock, and I was like listening to like Men at Work and Duran Duran, you know, like 13, 14 years old, and then I heard Def Leppard, like Rock of Ages. I was like, holy shit, this is some heavy crazy shit. And then Quiet Riot, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the world's gonna end.
And then it just kind of progressed from there. And then you start.
Next thing you find Ozzy, and then, you know, Kiss, and then this.
It's sort of like gateway drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, it was sort of the same thing with me, you know, where, you know, I was familiar with, you know, especially with the early MTV stuff. You know, we got exposed to a lot of shit when MTV used to play videos, and got, you know, I think the first time I heard like metal, like real metal, was like Haunting the Chapel, and it was like in like 7th or 8th grade, like some kid like had taped it like off some like radio show. They like, it came out this week, you know, and he's like, yo, you have to listen to this. And I was like, what the fuck is this? You know, you're going from like kind of like mainstream metal to Slayer, and it's like, fuck is this?
Totally insane.
It's totally insane, and you know, and fucking then, you know, then that's like, that became the gateway drugs to like, you know, the Anthrax, the Megadeth, the Metallicas, Overkill, fucking shit like that. You know, and you know, then you find out like things like Testament and fucking, you know, Death Angel, Dark Angel, and later on Death, and all these other things. And, you know, and then hardcore, like, how does hardcore come into the play? Because, I mean, I've talked about this with a lot of people, where I always feel that anybody who says, there's a very few exceptions to this rule. There are few exceptions, but anyone who says that, I've been listening to hardcore since day one, you know they're fucking lying. You know,
Definitely.
It's like, and...
Oh, 99.9%. I'm sure there's some cases where...
Yeah, I mean, Freddie Madball. And that's understandable because, you know, his brother, you know, kind of was like, here you go, kid, you know, and like threw him into the world. But, you know, mostly everyone I've ever spoken to about it, they're always like, oh yeah, you know, I got into it like this or that. Like, how did you find the hardcore aspect of your music thing? You know, like listening to music.
Well, in College Point, it goes back to the metal thing morphed into the hardcore thing. There was a guy, Jay Byers, who was like the town metalhead. He'd walk around with a big boombox, had the beat up denim jacket, long hair, and he would have the
straight leg pants into the fucking high tops.
Possibly, I don't know. I don't,
that was always the big metalhead thing.
Yeah,
back then.
so this guy influenced Al from Fit of Anger, who we then led it down to us. So this guy was into like every little niche band that you could possibly think of, and the bigger punk bands. So it's like we latched onto this guy, and we'd be like hanging out at his house because he would have all these crazy records. He would lend them, borrow it off of him, tape it, and then next thing you know, you had tape. Al from Fit of Anger would, next thing you know, we were constantly. There's no emailing it to you or anything like that. So Al lived maybe like 2 or 3 miles from our house, so it's like we'd go to walking over to Al's house. Let's get the Merciful Fate record off of Al and bring it back, and I'll tape it off of him. So you get to his house, and then you walk back to your house. You go to record it. Oh shit! I forgot to get the Dark Angel record off of him. Let me walk back there. So like your whole afternoon, when we have the boombox, so we're like blasting like all sorts of thrash metal as we were walking through town, and people would always give us side eye looks, and the jock kids would always like start with us and whatnot. And people would ask us and we would usually not just walk straight there. We would be like, not stage diving. We would dive into bushes and stuff like that. So we would be like bush diving. That sounds a little weird, but we would do bush diving and just like break into like these. Sorry about that. Break into these like moshes in the middle of the street, like when a mosh part would come on the thing. The 3 or 4 of us would be walking, just on people. What are you doing? We're moshing. One girl's like, "You're Martians?" That's right, we're Martians. So we would just go with it. So people were just like, "What the fuck's wrong with these guys?" So anyway, this whole thing led into the hardcore. It's like I guess DRI was a gateway, Suicidal Tendencies was a gateway, and then we found Agnostic Front, Crumbsuckers, and Ludacris. They had that Combat Core put out thing when the crossover came, and that's kind of how we kind of found it.
Yeah, because I mean, how I found bands a lot of times is something that a lot of people may or may not do anymore, is look at the thank you list.
Okay, yes, we definitely
look at the thank you list. Like, who are these bands? I saw that record in a store somewhere. Let me go pick this up. And, and you pick it up and it would either be completely shit, or it'd be like, this is the most amazing fucking thing I've ever seen in my fucking life.
We found it was like the Agnostic Front. The Cause for Alarm album was the first album that I got into by Agnostic Front. They happened to have a show at CB's. Went there. It was New York Hoods, Trip 6, and Nausea opening. And then I don't know if I bought the demo for Trip 6 there or at Some Records up the block. But once we found Some Records and we knew that we could get demos off of bands at the pool table in the back of CB's, that's kind of like that's when we started looking at the thank you list more, because it's like, wow, what other small bands like this are good that we could find? And Some Records was this amazing hub to find every one of these obscure bands that eventually a lot of them became bigger bands and known bands.
Oh yeah, like Ludacris eventually became Scatterbrain.
Well, they were Ludacris. To me, that first album is a great record. That's basically, I didn't really get into the Scatterbrain stuff afterwards, but getting back to smaller bands with the thank you list and everything is like kind of like led us into more obscure bands that nobody really knew about, except I guess if you were down there or in the bands,
Well, I mean, New York hardcore is sort of full of obscure smaller bands, scattered with a lot of top heavy fucking. Swallowed, and some guys are still out there fucking swinging for the fences, and they're, we still have Sick of It All, we still have AF, we still have fucking Madball, and, get the occasional fucking Sheer Terror still does their thing, which is nice, I mean, this is probably their 100th lineup at this fucking point, but, it is what it is. Now, when you chose the name In Effect, was this before or after the record label?
Before.
This is before?
Yeah.
Really? Alright, Howie, I'm going to have to ask you now how you came up with that fucking name.
In Effect was a very popular kind of, I guess, like street slang.
Yeah, I do.
Kind of thing at the time, so it's like, and that first copy that's sitting right here had only 50 copies made. So it was made on my friend's...
No, we're going to get into these because I definitely want to ask your opinion on these. Chris was gracious enough to bring an entire fucking collection of print In Effects. He says I can have them all except for which one?
You can have some of them.
Some of them. All right, he said I can have some. That's fine though. It's still it's still gracious. Though.
I have a couple doubles. That,
yes.
Yeah, but there's a couple in there that I only have one of.
And that's sitting here right now.
I'm going to go down fighting. If someone's trying to jack me up on the way back to my car outside, I'll go down fighting.
You know, and yeah, I was always wondering, like, because I'm sure there were certain people who definitely made that mistake of.
Oh
saying,
yeah.
You know, like, is this In Effect Records? Was that a magazine too?
Yeah, they were very cool, very gracious with the whole thing. I'm sure they could have made me stop, and you know, I guess lawyer up or whatnot.
Well, you got to remember Howie was running that end of the thing, and Howie Abrams, you know, he's basically one of us at the end of the day. You know, he's an old metalhead. He's a hardcore guy. You know, what's the point in spending a lot of lawyers' fees in something? You know, when it's like, you know, it's all really all street shit. You know, I mean, that's what hardcore really is. It's all like fucking like local street music. You know.
And they might not have it would totally be understandable if they never even heard of it. Issue 1 had 50, and I think issue 2 I only made maybe 200 of it. So it's very easy to think that they missed the first 250 that were out there. When issue 3 came out, I actually interviewed Agnostic Front, who were on In Effect Records, and I went to In Effect in Hollis, and Steve Martin from Agnostic Front / In Effect Records opens the door, and he goes, "Oh, so In Effect magazine or fanzine is here to interview Agnostic Front from In Effect Records. Isn't that a little
weird?
Something that we laughed about it, and I was like waiting for like I don't know, some suit to come out and tell me I had to stop using the name.
It's like, while we got you here, let's take you in the back room and fuck you up.
Yeah,
you know.
But they were totally cool, and still to this day, nobody. But two people do get confused, and I've had people come up to me and ask me if I'm still putting records out, and how was it putting out the VHS tape of Gorilla Biscuits and stuff.
You really
like that.
You get that?
Yes.
Oh my god!
And I always say it's not. We're two different things.
I just thumbed through this. Actually, the first time I've actually looked through this, and you know what? It's very well put together. Like, what was your process when you did something like this? Was this all like a typed page?
Yeah.
And then you were just like, oh fuck, I made a mistake, and rip it up and throw it out and start again?
Yeah. I learned from Freddie Alva from New Breed once again. It's like basically you take out this, let's see, where's the outburst? Yeah, so basically I would take a piece of paper and put a pencil line right there, the pencil line out there, and I would just type around it. And my typewriter that I borrowed from Angela Bonettos of the Bonettos brothers' sister, Angela B. I don't believe it had a eraser, or the thing to erase, or the whiteout thing would never line up the right way. So anyway, I would type an entire page out, and sometimes have to type I was so insane with not having typos, as I knew I would always miss a couple anyway, and I would type up the whole page all over again. Then once you type the page out, get everything the right way, you put you tape the logo on, you tape the photo on, and that's one page, and then you just continue the process until you have all the pages done.
Very time consuming.
Yeah, I would be up late typing, like, my mother and my stepfather would be like, coming out to go to the bathroom at 2 or 3 in the morning, and there's me with the typewriter, like, pecking away.
It's like, what are you doing? Go to fucking bed. You got school in the morning.
Pretty much.
I don't understand this. How's your family with you in hardcore? I mean, I was gracious enough where my parents were actually very supportive of me playing in bands and whatever, and going to shows. They didn't give a fuck. As long as, I paid my whatever little bills I had off at the fucking time, which was really just a fucking, throw a couple dollars into the house and pay off my own phone line, which I had. That was it. It's like I better have to loan you fucking money for the phone bill this month. I mean, how was your family when it came to, like, you doing this? They were like, what the fuck are you doing?
Oh, they're very supportive of the fanzine. The music, in the beginning it was a little bit of a shock. Like, one of the first records that I had was the first Suicidal Tendencies record. I got that and Venom Black Metal at the Broadway Mall in Hicksville while Christmas shopping with my parents.
Jesus Christ.
And so I bring it home, I put it on, and you hear, I'm suicidal fair, I gotta get some help, I have suicidal tendencies, and I just can't kill myself. The door swings open. What the fuck are you listening to? Grabs the lyric sheet, balls it up, throws it in the garbage can in the kitchen, and we turn it off because we're scared that, mom is mad that we're listening to this music and whatnot. We're kind of half laughing, kind of like freaked out. But the next day, or that night, my brother went to the garbage can, took it out, the lyric sheet, nice and flattened it out. We brought it up to Minuteman photo copy place, and had a new one made, and I slid it right into my vinyl, and off we went. We just, when mom would be home, we wouldn't play the crazier lyrics that loud or put headphones on, and she wasn't that crazy, as far as, coming down on us for the shirts or anything like that. She was always like, she was cool. My mom was cool with that stuff. My father, when my mother and father got divorced, he moved to New Jersey, and he would always come visit us on Saturdays. Where do you guys want to go? What do you want to do today? Well, I got you for a couple of hours. Where do you want to go? And every Saturday, we want to go to Slip Disc Records in Valley Stream.
Wow.
And don't you want to go anywhere else? Every single Saturday, we would bring him to Slip Disc Records, yeah. And he would just like look around, look at the buttons and the stickers, and look at the records, and he wasn't into it at all, but he would just check it out, and he was cool with it. And we would drop all our money there and walk out.
Well, that was cool. I mean, like I said, parents could be either one thing or the other with it. There's usually no middle ground a lot of times. They're supportive of it or not. I mean, my parents, thank Christ, were very supportive of my musical choices and what I listen to. But I also listen to, and I still listen to oldies. And that was something that a lot of people always found weird. And I always found it weird when I went into shows that people would be like, I listen to only hardcore music. It's like, well, I just heard Frankie Valli's fucking greatest hits. So I'm fucking rocking out to that too. Oh, you're a poser. I'm like, dude, you can listen to one fucking type of music here, and there's still people like that to this day. I usually tend to see that's with younger generations or when you're younger, maybe I should say that. When you're younger, some people tend to be like, I have to come off as a purist. And then there's the people's like, I don't give a fuck, this is what I listen to, and I was maybe a little bit like that. I shed all my fucking metal records when I first got into hardcore, and like, oh, I'm into this, and then by the time like Fahrenheit started up, I was like, fuck it, I'm wearing my influences on my sleeve, which came out in music too, and, some people are like, you like Radiohead, you like this, you like that, and I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with that? Well, that's not hardcore. I'm like, well, what the fuck is hardcore? Do you ever feel like some people have their own fucking, they get it skewed? Like...
I guess, I've always listened, like, you were saying you listen to oldies. My parents always listened to CBS 101,
yeah.
Which is now plays 80s music. So it's like, it's kind of weird that the music that I found before metal and hardcore is now oldies music. So, but, my parents went through the same thing. It's like, the music that they, from their childhood, became the oldies. And
yeah.
I always liked that stuff. Like, that was standard listening in the car when you got in the car.
Yeah, same thing. Anytime you went on a trip, CBS 101 came on, and
yeah.
Fucking Harry Harrison or whoever the fuck,
My father's record collection was mostly country music and comedy records. So I would put, like, Bill Cosby records on, and record that he had that I always still remember is I started out as a child, and that was his opening line on the album. I started out as a child, and he just stops and there's like laughter. Of course you started out as a child. What else could you start out as? And anyway, my father telling me that he was very disappointed in me, that he thought that his music now sucked. His country music now sucked. Very disappointed that you said that. But anyway, the truth be told, it's like I liked it. I was a little kid. My kid, who's 3 years old now, my son, he calls it running music because he runs around the house in a circle, and he dives on the couch and everything. It's not following me. I don't do this myself when I'm listening to Fahrenheit in my house. I don't run around the house and dive.
I would hope not. That would be a little weird.
But he calls it running music, and he wants running music to be played. And I'm sure maybe when he gets to be 12, 13, whenever he starts discovering music, 10, 9, 8, whatever age it is, maybe, Dad, your music sucks, and I'm prepared for that.
Well,
maybe not.
You know what? You got to let them discover on their own what they like. I mean, right now, the radio isn't what it used to be like when we were fucking kids. Especially like more modern radio. They just keep pumping the same 4 songs. Yeah, I mean, not even CBS FM. I hear the same 12 to 20 songs all day long, and I'm like, all right, how many times am I gonna fucking have to hear I ran so far away from fucking flock of seagulls? It's like, can't we get some 60s doo-wop in here or some other shit?
Well, the classic rock stations kind of do that too. It's like, I mean, Jimi Hendrix has great songs, but all you hear is like, Purple Haze.
Or all along the Watchtower.
Yeah.
Those
It's like there's other songs too.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you take any of those big, classic 70s kind of rock bands, and it's like they kind of do the same thing. Why not throw, like, Iron Maiden's not that heavy. Why not throw an Iron Maiden song in? Why not throw something else in there that's not played over and over? But I'm sure they have reasons. And
well, yeah, it's all about programming. It's all about money. There's a lot. I just watched a documentary about fucking this about bands who moved to LA, and like the whole music business thing. Like they broke it down, and I was like, oh my god, this is fucking so terrible, because it basically saying how the music industry is dead. And that everything, everyone tends to forget, like with the music business, it's a business. People in to make money. The uppers make money. The bands, they get fucked. And again, it's kind of like we talked about, like, which we're going to get into in a second, how the internet changed fucking everything that, everything that we do now. It really has, because when we were, we were fucking coming up in the 90s, we had internet. It was extremely basic. It was good for emails, and forget sending anything that you had to scan, because that shit would have took fucking all day. You'd like, I'm going to go out and go grab fucking whatever. I might be at 70% by the time I fucking come home. So, Chris, we're bullshitting off camera about that. These 4 issues have an effect, right? These were your 80s issues, so to speak. First three. Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
And a bulk of your work was done in the 90s. How would you rate 90s scene compared to, like, let's say now, or even the 80s?
I don't know. 3 different things altogether. In the 80s, I'm still, 16, 17, 18 years old. I'm 89 and 19. So it's like I'm younger, I'm still feeling out everything. The bands are still like, kind of like, it's a lot of people in the bands are older than me, and they've been around for a lot longer. So there's a little bit more of an intimidation factor, I guess, because it's like, I'm still newish.
Yeah.
And the 90s, now I'm like, in my early 20s, and I've been around going to shows for years. So it's like these people are just people that, like, I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
It's not like, it's just, you just say anything, you know what I mean? It's not like you have to be, I don't know, watch your words, or you just, whatever. I'm hanging out with Lenny. What the fuck? I can say whatever. It's like, kind of like more like that kind of feeling. There were a couple other bigger bands, that I didn't know. The bands that would be out touring a lot, and I didn't know them as well. Maybe there I'm like a little bit more reserved in my wording and stuff like that. But bands that I knew, a lot of the bands in the issues I knew, I would hang out with. I would be at shows with them. I would go to the shows in the cars. We would hang out in parks and everything afterwards. It was like kind of like just hanging out and talking to your friends, as far as that. And today, it's it's more, I feel a little bit more like a spectator, because I do a lot of stuff online. I do a lot of emails are done, interviews are done by email. It's not a lot of as much face to face. So I guess now I've come back to where it's like I'm not as, tight with all the bands. I don't have the time to hang out. I have work, and as I mentioned earlier, a young child, and it's like I don't have as much free time to go to every show and be, really, friends with everybody as much as I used to be, like in the 90s. So it's like, it's understandable. It's like, it's part of my life, the time period where I am in my life. And those are the 3 differences, I would say, as far as how I approach doing the effect.
All right, because, like I said, basically put out these 3 in the 80s. Then you put this entire stack in the 90s. And, I mean, the first one I remember seeing is probably number 6 or number 7. And I was like, wow. I think the first time I saw it before I knew you was probably like See Here. The See Here was, for people that don't know, See Here was 7th Street?
7th or 8th.
It wasn't on 8th. It was definitely 7th. It might have been 7th or 6th. But they were basically a local magazine slash independent bookshop.
Yep, they sold all sorts of fanzines and books and stuff like kind of like this.
You know, you would have, you know, you'd have In Effect there. You would have Guillotine. You would have fucking what's that one? Fucking they just Bridge 9 just put it out. The whole
Triple X.
no, the other one. The fucking it was a lot more straight edge people on it.
Does it ring a bell?
Like I said, Bridge 9 put out something about it, but like I said, the 90s to me seemed to have like this rich history of there were a lot of chances taken, you know, compared to let's say now, where now it seems like there's a formula, you know, where people were like, all right, fuck it, we're gonna take a chance to do something totally out the box, you know, and you could have a hardcore you could have a hardcore band playing with the fucking hip hop band or playing with some sort of alternative band, and it would all get over. You know, I think we had the clubs. I think we had the numbers. I mean, there were literally thousands of fucking kids. I remember, you know, and I'm sure you remember having this problem. There's 7 shows this weekend. Which one am I going to go to? How many can I make? Can I make 2 on a night? Can I make 1? Oh, this one starts at fucking 3 p.m. The other one starts at 8. Am I going to be in the mood to do 2 in a night? You know, where, I mean, that still goes on today to a certain degree, but I think there's a different quality to it. You know, we had Coney, we had Wetlands, we had, you know, CBs for the most part. Is that different now?
Is it different now? Yeah, it's like there's, you know, I go, like there's weekends where it's like, okay, I'm kind of free this weekend. I want to go to a show and I look it up and I don't always see a show that I want to go see. It might not be in my area. It might not be like the bands I want to see, but it's not like I have 7 shows. You know, that example is like, you know, I can't see that happening where there's 7 shows and I have to, you know, today and choose from which one.
Yeah. I mean, I always felt, because if I was not playing a show, I was definitely at some sort of fucking show. I mean, obviously it's different now that we're older. You know, we all have responsibilities. Some of us have kids and everything else, and you know, life sort of gets in the way of that love. But you still go to shows when you can. You know, is there any? You know, do you sometimes wish that you know it could be as simple as it was in the 90s?
Yeah, but that's, you know, goes more in line with being, you know, family, adult, and work and stuff like that. You know, I'm sure there's like, you know, there's Kill Your Idols is playing today. Like right now it's starting in Amityville. That's like near where I live.
Oh, Revolution.
American Amityville Music Hall, and you know, it's a good bill that they have on there. And I'm sure there's probably something somewhere else, but it's, you know, I'm doing this here right now, and it's like, you know, I'm sure there's family things in the middle. Maybe I can get out there later on. Maybe I don't, you know. But it's, you know, it's, I don't know. It's like I get to the show. It's like usually like I see a show like, you know, like a month ahead of time. Put it on the calendar and make sure anything else that tries to invade that space in the calendar gets blocked.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things nowadays.
I mean, but for kids that are maybe like early 20s or whatnot, and don't have the family or job responsibilities, there's enough shows to go around, you know, to get to, you know, just a matter of how much you're willing to travel and you know, how bad do you want to do it, you know. It's not like there's a total lack of shows. The shows are there.
Oh, no, the shows will always be there. Now, this was the last issue of In Effect. What made you stop?
I was really burnt out at the time. It was like this issue that you showed. I made 10,000 copies of, and it was a thing where it's like basically I would drive to the city, and you know, Generation Records might take 200 off my hands, and Bleak Bars might take 100 off my hands. So that's still like 9,700 issues you still gotta get rid of. And basically, they was sold. There was a couple of distribution things where I had Tower Records, took like maybe like 100 or 200, and they sent them around the world. But it's thousands and thousands more that you still have to get rid of. The last issue, I think, had like 132 pages or some insane amount of content.
It looks rather thick, not for nothing. I mean, I mean, I'm looking, mind you guys, I'm seeing some of these earlier issues for the first time, and there's a couple of them where they're really thin, and so be it. This one, I don't think I haven't seen this probably in fucking almost 20 years. And this thing is heavy.
Yeah, there's a ton of content. I did all the interviews, and then there was I had, just like now with the website, I had people helping with doing reviews of albums, CDs, demos. But just the content was so much to get together, then to do the layout, and just took a ton of time. Then the distribution was the most time-consuming, it's physically you're become a salesman, where I would have hundreds of magazines in the trunk of my car, and I would drive upstate New York into Connecticut. I would just mail single copies to record stores. I would read in back of magazines. We were talking about thank you lists before. I would find a record store in Colorado, call them up. What's your address? Can I mail you a sample copy? Yes, you can. This is earlier issues.
Yeah.
They would get it, and I'd say, are you interested in taking some? And they'd usually go, yeah, I want it on consignment, and I'll take 5 of them or 3 of them. So it's you're basically
you're giving them away.
You're trying to make the money back. You're trying to build a little base, and that kind of paid off towards the end, because the stores that were out of state that would take maybe 2, 3, 5 in the beginning would end up taking 20, and I accumulated a bunch of those stores towards the end. But the most thing that was important was also going to as many shows as you could, standing outside and saying, just going up to, hey, you want to buy my zine? You want to buy a zine? And there were a lot of other people. It wasn't just me doing it. There were other zines that came and went, and ones that stuck around. And the people generally would stand out there showing your face, and this is the face that goes along with it. And do you want to buy it? Yes or no? And that's how I got rid of tons of them. And then I would have friends helping out, like my friend Brian Lopez, who still goes to shows here and there, and Chris Bonettos from EGH, Fit of Anger. They were amazing salespeople. Mm-hmm. Basically, they would go up to people, and they would, this is a 132-page magazine, and we were, if I sold it outside a show, it was always for $1. The stores, sometimes I would sell it to them for $1.50, and they would flip it around, usually $3. I didn't really want it to be one of those high-priced things. I wanted it to be something where it was known that I was not making a killing on this. I was trying to make my money back each issue. And everything, I think, leading up to this last issue either lost money or didn't make money. And I kind of made it back on this last issue because I had so much advertising that I had, and people paid advertising.
How many interviews that you didn't do in person that you mailed out that you didn't get back?
0, probably, because it was only in the first issue or 2. From issue 1, I think there were 2 that were mailed out, and everything after that was a face-to-face. For the most part. Maybe the last issue, I think I had a Hoods was in here from Sacramento, and I think that's the only. Maybe Vision might have been an email one. I did not meet up with Vision for that interview, but the majority of all the stuff from the majority, I'd say 90% of them were done in person.
Yeah, because I remember when you did mine. You came over to my mom's place.
Yeah,
and I actually read that early this morning because I went to my storage space and got this friggin' issue out, which is, fun little issue. Both Worlds, wow. There was a band that came and went. I was like, holy shit, it's a really weird time capsule when you see some of these things. You ever consider just combining these all into one book? It's been done before. It's definitely been done before, and I think you could definitely combine a lot of this stuff in one book, and you probably make a limited number of 300 or 500 or whatever, and I think there are people who would actually buy it. Mm-hmm. You ever consider that?
Well, it's been talked about with someone that has had the material for a bunch of years now, and it just hasn't materialized as of yet. They have all the original copies and all the original photos and basically everything that I would need to make a book. But it's in their hands. It was an agreement made, and we're just sitting back now, waiting for everything to materialize. It's been a little frustrating, and it is what it is right now. I see other people coming out with books and some good magazines that had a lot more content than I did, and they look cool and everything. And like going into the agreement, it was like a thing where it's like I just wanted to actually have one copy for myself to like have somehow someone else's, I guess, interpretation, not having every single interview lifted and put it into the book, but like the kind of like a best of, the best of, like maybe cool show review that stood out or cool interview photos, artwork, because there's a lot of cool artwork that was done. Like Chris Benetos again from EGH and Mark Catalina did tons of artwork for the magazines in early years and the later years, and it's like those things should be kind of like brought along and like make people so they don't get like kind of forgotten.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember, like I said, just looking through a lot of these, and I was like, I couldn't wait, and I'd bother you a lot of times, and be like, "When's another one coming out?" I was like, "I'm working on it. Leave me alone."
Yeah, that was the thing. It's like I would be standing outside a show selling the issue, and it just I have maybe like this last issue with the 10,000 copies. I couldn't fit it into my apartment. They just would, there were just too many, so I had them stacked in my car, had them stacked in the common hallway with my neighbors, and I would just spread them out, and then it's like they would dwindle down and dwindle down. I would make this huge push where it's like the first weekend they would come out, I would almost have like a mapped out plan of where I was going to go to sell them, and it was just a lot of work. And people right away, as soon as the current issue's out and you're selling it, they're like, "When's the next one coming out?" And it would take me easily almost 6 months to accumulate all the material.
Now, you after this last issue came out, you took a break and you decided to go online, which, it's the way of the world at this point. I'm sure there's people, I haven't seen them, but I don't go to as many shows as I used to, but I'm sure there's still people doing print fanzines. I'll be really honest with you. The shows I've been to, I haven't been handed a flyer in I don't know how long. It's another lost art, unless you're Mike Scandato. Mike Scandato loves handing out flyers randomly. That's right, Mike, I'm talking to you. It's fine. You got my props. But when you went over into the digital world, and obviously there's no really money generating, so to speak, as like with here you had ads, how do you feel about that now, between going from this to a cloud, basically?
There's a lot of other people that do what I do.
Yeah.
I do what they do. We all kind of like, I try to be, how do you stand out? But everybody's doing the same thing. Basically, in the beginning when I started doing the website in 2012, I couldn't get any bands to send me material. It was like almost starting all over again. I didn't want to use the In Effect name for the website because in case it failed, I didn't want it to ruin what was built off of this. I was thinking of names with hardcore in it and different things like that. But a couple of friends tried to say you start it again. You have to use the name In Effect in some capacity. So I started doing that, and I wasn't really getting any run as far as people contacting me back. I would email bands and ask them for demos or downloads, or can you send a copy to me? I've got a PO box at the post office. Spent money on that. Nothing came. It was just like it was like dormant. And then little by little, some bands. I remember Silence Equals Death from New Jersey was one of the bands that actually sent me a physical CD, and it was really good. It was a 4-song EP, and that was like the start. I was like, wow, somebody actually sent me something. And then next thing you know, you start getting on mailing lists. And what I see from a lot of other websites is they just take like a press release, and it's like a copy and paste job with the photo of a band, where you'll have like the press photo, and there'll be everybody kind of copying everybody else, where it's like the same exact word for word, just copy and pasted with the band photo, and they'll put it up, and there'll be like 1 million, likes, shares, whatever the format is.
So my question is, then why bother?
Because what I did, or I'm still doing, is I started doing my original content, as I think is what makes In Effect stand out from the other ones. It's like I do interviews with bands still, and although a lot of other ones do interviews as well, a lot of them are just kind of like news.
Yeah.
Mine is like where it's like I'm trying to bring something different, where it's like I have original content along with the interviews, the reviews. Some of the other things are more like, like the news section is like a lot of the news gets copied over and over because everybody's sharing the same news. But I think the strength of the website is the interviews and people seem to like the interviews. They do very well, especially when there's bigger name bands. And I've gotten compliments from people saying that the questions that I come up with for the bands are pretty creative, and it makes for an interesting read.
Do you ever feel it's like, well, I'm doing this, but I mean, I always get the vibe that you do it because you just love it. It's almost like one of those weird idiosyncrasies where you're just like, I have to do this.
There's a little bit of that. There's also I feel like almost like a responsibility to keep the helping the smaller bands, the bands that are coming up, to get their name out there. There's tons of times where it's like I'll promote a band, do an interview, anything, and it's like I know it's not going to get a good push. I know it's going to get a couple of hundred hits maybe, and I know it's a lot of work, but it helps the bands. And even if they pick up a couple more followers and people are really maybe in tune with following all the new bands that I promote, hopefully in the long run it's like a time capsule thing again.
Yeah.
And hopefully the band does get some new fans off of, even if it's something that's like a small little run. Hopefully they get some more exposure out of it.
You did this thing that you actually sent me a preview for before you put it out for the This Is Hardcore Q&A. One of your guys that you have working for you.
Oh, the video that came out from this past summer?
Yes, and it was fucking fantastic.
Thank you.
And it's like things like that need to be done. I mean, to stay relevant in the current state of things, because nowadays, we've gone from a scene where we had so many shows to pick from for a long time to now there's a big pop for fucking This Is Hardcore, Black and Blue Bowl, Hellfest, whatever the fuck it is, and I've been to a few local shows where I go like, man, there's fucking 75 kids here, man. This is fucking, it is what it is. Maybe the band's not popular. I know there's still, the basement show is still prevalent. There's still tons of that shit happening all over the place. But again, I guess we got spoiled. We had a lot more clubs to deal with. Now it's, it is what it is. I mean, do you think with times changing with the internet, and the internet's a game changer. It totally, is a fucking game changer because, did you pass my CD? Because, nowadays you have back then, physical product. You don't have physical products really anymore, unless you're a vinyl collector, and the vinyl seems to do okay, But everything, as soon as it's online, guys, it's stolen. That's the reality of how fucking the internet works nowadays. Or even worse, you have to wade through 5,000 bands to find a fucking good band.
Yes, I know.
We've all been there looking for something cool to new listen to, and you're like, oh my god, it's mundane shit. Dude, put the guitar down. Go get a job. I don't give a fuck. Oh, by the way, Fit of Anger. Queen's band. You also write, or you do freelance for Down for Life. You want to talk about this?
Yeah, that's based in the UK. I believe they make 10,000 copies per issue. This is the 4th issue that just came out. Miles Hackett is someone who's done labels before. He did Dry Heave Records, and he contacted me initially for the first issue, asking me if I would do a scene report. And at the time, I believe it was a New York scene report that I did, and it's kind of morphed into a thing where each issue I put out a scene report that just basically talks about goings-ons in all of hardcore, not just, it's basically still mostly the United States because that's where we're from, and that's what's in my face, so that's what I'm promoting. And I think you got it right there on the page before it.
It's, you got a couple of columns?
Yeah, that's right. It's like the pages and stuff. There and there.
Hey,
So it's like a real magazine. It's like glossy cover. It's got tons of bands in it, and they have big bands, small bands, and there's reviews. It's pretty cool. I like it. It's I hope it continues on, and it's something that can only help someone who's on the fence or doesn't know about hardcore or punk, and find bands and find the music. This could be a gateway for someone. How Agnostic Front Cause for Alarm or Crumbsucker's Life of Dreams is a gateway to help me find and get my foot in the door. This kind of magazine is something that could help somebody else find their way in.
Do you ever want to do does it ever get to you where you're like, I want to do a print one again?
Yeah, sometimes I think about it, and it's like, I thought about doing something where maybe like once a year, almost like a yearbook kind of thing, where it's like I take everything I did online. I don't really want to double up and re-interview bands that have already been done, but maybe like for the year, I'll take like the best interviews and make it into something nicer than this, not just like newsprint pages, but like like a kind of like more something like the Down for Life magazine with color everything and nice layout and everything. But the fact of the matter is, it comes down to time and money and stuff like that. The website doesn't generate any money. It's just like it's not, it doesn't cost me much money to make it. It's more a time consuming thing.
Well, I think with the website, you've definitely done some creative things. Like about a year ago, you did that "What did you do for a job?" thing.
Yeah, we've had a couple
which was actually really interesting because I actually want to know what other people did for work. Because as we all, just so people know, most of us from the 90s are now in our 40s. And a lot of us have latched on to real jobs, and it was kind of interesting to see, like, what other people are doing for work. Some people are kind of doing nothing for work. But a lot of us have jobs. And it was just like, stuff like that was like really interesting to me, because it was, again, it wasn't just like, it wasn't your typical like, hey, tell me when the band formed. Just a typical fucking like, any fanzine interview. It was just, again, a little more outside the box. And I think that was like something that, for future reference, think more outside the box to get those types of things going.
Those articles usually take forever.
Yeah.
to accumulate. And it's just like...
well, why do they take forever?
Getting responses back from people and people.
I think I had mine back in like a day.
Yeah, well,
you were like here's questions like.
You also have like 50 episodes of Cocktails and Conversations out in like 2 months, right?
No. I work a real job, people. I don't fucking. I do this because I'm just fucking.
No, but you do. Fun. You have a. It's not like you put 1 or 2 out and then you disappeared for a year. You've been putting them out on a steady pace.
At least one a month at this point.
Okay.
At least one a month. It's really just everyone has a story to tell. That's how I look at it. Everyone has some sort of story to tell. One way or the other, I'm gonna fucking let them speak their minds. If they don't want to speak their minds, or if I have to force something out of somebody, or they don't want to talk about it, that's fine. Just doing it for fun.
Same with me. It's like I'm actually proud of the fact that this doesn't bring in money. And if I did make money off of it, I would probably flip it around and do something where, make a run of T-shirts and give them out. And the times that I have lost money is usually like when I make stickers.
Oh yeah, look at this thing, guys.
Like stickers and give them out. And it's like the goal, I guess, is to get them on every band's equipment cases and the whole scene and elsewhere.
I got them on a bunch of mine.
And then the shirts with the same logo. It's like a lot of them are given out. As favors, like if a band really goes out of their way to help me out with something, it's like I try to give it back, and it's I'm not into trying to make money off of it. It never was, and it just continues on with the website.
What do you hope for the future with In Effect and just you writing and everything else? Just you do it for passion at this point. Obviously, you're not doing it for money. You work a real job.
Mm-hmm.
It's like. And at this point, what do you hope for the In Effect brand? In
Effect brand,
so to speak. I know it's weird to say that, isn't it?
I don't know. It's like sometimes it's like right now I'm currently in a rut where it's like I don't know what I want to do. It's like I don't really have a lot of bands.
Yeah.
Like on the horizon that I want to interview right now. Usually, during these ruts, something happens where some new music from out of left field, a band everybody starts talking about that I never heard of, will come out, and then I jump on it and I start interviewing them, and then another one will pop up. I don't know. It'll be 6 years in February that I've been doing just the website, which is to me is insane. I could not imagine when I started it would last this long. It's got like over 1 million people have visited the site, 1.2 million people in that time, and again, no advertising except for me handing out flyers, going up to like people at shows like, "Hey Lenny, here's a flyer, check it out." Like In Effect, check it out, man.
Oh wow, check it out.
And I do like, when an update comes out, I put a look in Instagram and hope for the best. And sometimes it's like deflating when you have something you think is gonna pop off really good, and then you only get a couple hundred hits, and other ones
Well, yeah, I
other
mean,
ones take off.
I mean, that's kind of what happens. Unfortunately, we same thing what I do. Fucking, it gets a couple hundred hits, but I'm not doing it for popularity or anything like that. I'm doing it just because it's fun. If someone finds something out new that they never found out before, excellent.
Yep.
If they don't watch it, I don't give a fuck. I mean, it is what it is. But Chris, it was awesome for you to come by. It was awesome to talk some old school history. It was, if guys have a chance, check it out, ineffecthardcore.com. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
All right, just want to make sure because, there's, you mispronounce things or you spell things wrong. It's going to burn his ass later, watch.
Okay.
But, Chris, pleasure.
Thank you, Lenny.
Thank you.